Okay, so I'm Fiona and I'm 23 and I'm currently living in London. So I currently work for a tech startup doing a lot of their internal operations.
My name's Libby, I'm 20 and I'm also living in London as a student, but originally from Bristol. I'm studying adult nursing at King's College London. I really enjoy it at the moment.
We met at one of the Believe and Achieve social evenings, which took place in London a couple of months ago now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you been involved in Believe and Achieve before?
Yes, I have. I started off helping out quite near the beginning. I met with Becky and got to know her, and then since then I've helped out with a couple of things, been at a couple of the different events, which included I went for a day to the over 18s away weekend at Centre Parks and also the social evening in London. And then I've also done my training to be a peer mentor as well.
So I joined I think a bit later on than you. I joined at the start of the year and met Becky, was it back in January? And my first event was at the social evening, and no, the photography evening and then the social evening. And then I've just been like in touch with lots of different people. I've also been to counselling as well from Believe and Achieve.
The first interaction I would have had was actually with what was Meningitis UK at the time. So it was a few months after I'd had meningitis myself, because I wanted to do some fundraising. And so we got in touch with the charity directly to get resources and things like that and let them know that we were fundraising. And then it was shortly after that that the merger with Meningitis Trust was already going to be happening, and Meningitis Trust had set up the Young Ambassador scheme. So they'd done their first intake of young ambassadors and they were looking to do their second. And so they phoned me up and asked me if I wanted to apply to be a young ambassador. So I became a young ambassador in 2013. I would say a young ambassador, it's obviously someone who's had an experience of meningitis, whether that's personally or because someone else they know has had meningitis as well, but has been personally affected by it in some way, who wants to give back and represent the charity, whether that's more through fundraising or whether it's through spreading awareness, even giving out symptoms cards, going and doing talks, collecting checks from places that have done fundraising themselves. And it's also been a lot to do with also representing the charity at different events that are run by the charity as well. So being able to go along to things like receptions at the House of Commons or being at the London Marathon as a volunteer. But it's also a great group of people who have all had a similar experience. So it's also a really good group of friends as well.
Definitely. People don't quite understand how difficult meningitis can be because it's so invisible, and to be able to just come away even just for a couple of hours to a social event and meet people like Fiona and just take a break from it all and not have to explain how unpredictable the effects are, and they just completely get you, and it's just time to relax as well. It's really nice.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It's people, I think as well, you get people that have various levels of understanding of meningitis anyway, but even they could be as understanding as possible, but they still don't necessarily fully understand how different you might feel as a result of it as well. And so knowing that you can come into what is a really accepting environment because it's full of really like-minded people has made a huge difference.
Because I'm profoundly deaf, I get quite tired easily, and I also have epilepsy and other effects. Exhaustion and concentrating it happens quite a lot to me in social environments. So it's nice that sometimes if I did need to take a break at a social event or go home early, nobody would be judging me of that. It's just been really nice.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It's just that, even just down to the fact that you can have off days, and sometimes I think you could so easily, especially even further down the line from having had meningitis, you can always put it down to just everyone has an off day. But you also just know that, it stems from something, and you can't always guarantee that everything has stemmed from having had meningitis, but it is nice to be in that space where everyone is on an equal footing of understanding. When I had meningitis, I was 15, almost 16. I was in hospital for grand total just a week, but it was only on the last day that I was in hospital that they told us it was meningitis. It was kind of, I got the diagnosis of it was meningitis, but you're better, you can go home. But in terms of the after effects, in hindsight, I had major issues with exhaustion and with terrible short-term memory. Really awful short-term memory. So I would say those were the main things. I think I also, a few years down the line, had a real issue with anxiety as well, which still flares up on occasion, but I know how to manage it now. But again, that's one of those things where you can't pin it down to having been a direct result of meningitis, but I could almost guarantee it was.
I was quite young when I had meningitis. I had a form of bacterial, I've been told, when I was about 11 months old. I don't remember anything because I was so young. But growing up, I've just been told what happened and from different members of the family, and they just said I was very sick. I was in hospital for quite a while. And the first thing I can just sort of remember is just always being different. At school, I struggled a lot. So the clear first after effect I had was profound deafness. So I had a lot of hospital appointments, and I don't think at the time I realised how much meningitis can cause. I just thought, oh, I'm deaf, that's it. But then I started to realise growing up, other things were starting to come up, and I was researching. Like, I was having problems with my memory, I was having problems with coordination and balance and little things like that, and I was starting to realise, oh wait a minute, it's a bit more complex and I'm going to have to think about managing these things. And it was quite difficult at the time because although I had my support from my family, they didn't quite understand, and the school found it quite challenging. I just always struggled socially as well because of my hearing, and at age 13 I also got diagnosed with epilepsy, so that was like another hurdle for me in my teenage years. And I also struggled with like anxiety problems later on as well, same as you. And although I can't say it's the meningitis, I think it's a major factor in my anxiety. And today I'm just sort of learning to live with all these after effects and learning to adapt.
Definitely, as a teenager, I think it was really noticeable. I think I did 2 years of school after having had it, more or less. Everyone was very understanding from day one, obviously, and I came back in, but I did come straight back in and kind of myself was acting as though nothing had happened because I didn't want anybody to make any changes and I didn't want to be held back by it. So people didn't necessarily realise just how long it's going to have after effects for. I think that's really, especially those kind of hidden after effects, I suppose. And so a year down the line, which was when I did my first kind of bit of fundraising and all this kind of thing, people looked at me as someone that was better now. That was it. That I was better. And I look back now and I think, no, I'm now a profoundly different person. And so, there were days that were tough and I think I changed a lot. But there were also days where, things like anxiety just really got me, or I just would crash out, and that still happens. Again, there are just some days where I need to spend the whole day in the house. I can't do anything else. I just have to be by myself, very out of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's still moments like that. Definitely few and far between in comparison, but just having to completely zone out for a day.
Yeah, definitely. I have similar experience. I have off days and I just need to stay at home and think about how I feel and what's happening, because anxiety does really get to me, and I don't think my family understand. Like, they understand the physical effects, they understand that I can't hear, but they don't understand quite so much that anxiety affects me and problems with my memory affects me. And although they're trying hard to understand, they think, oh, I'm better now, like, I've grown up, I've recovered, I'm doing well, but I still have those bad days, and I think that can be quite hard for others to understand.
I think for me as well, one of the things that I find noticeable now is that if you have a personality that is just more extroverted and more confident, or comes across as more confident, people would never assume that there are also days where I go completely in the other direction. But it is, like, that happens. And I think it makes it seem all the more like crashing out because it's going from here to here. Especially when it's so irregular.
Yeah. So I was usually, even though the meningitis happened quite early in my life, because of all the after effects I had, I did miss school a lot. So I had a lot of appointments every couple of months. I had a lot of sick days because I'd had a seizure, or my hearing was not working, or I would just be unwell. And I think sometimes teachers found it hard to understand, and they think it was an excuse, and they didn't completely understand. They thought, oh, you have meningitis and then that's it, you're recovered. And it actually wasn't like that. It did hit me quite a lot in school, and even though I wasn't confident at school, I was doing okay. I think just teachers sometimes would put me in the bottom set, even though that's not actually my ability. I was able to do a lot more. So yeah, they would just assume that I was just putting excuses in to be sick, and actually I was really struggling a lot growing up with that. So I've heard of the charities a lot growing up, but I thought they were just helplines and support for people that have had meningitis and then go straight to them. I didn't realise that Believe and Achieve existed, and I saw it come up on my Facebook, and I was like, oh, what's that? I must have a look. And I was really surprised at all this, the amazing support that it can offer. And I think when I first came to you, I was struggling a little bit because I just started university, and the main reason for my approach was just to get some more support. And then I wanted to be able to, once I have got that support, be able to help others through any counselling or anything like that, or be there as support, because I know how difficult it can be, and I feel I can empathise with others that even though you don't have the exact same experience, I can understand in some way what it's like to go through meningitis.
Going to the away weekend, even just for the day, was really interesting. I think that was the first time that I'd been to something which was really my age group, and it was also really exciting to go into a group of people who had all had an experience but were all quite new to the charity and weren't people that I'd met because they were also ambassadors. It was people that had gotten in touch specifically because they'd found Believe and Achieve. And just to see a room of people that were so enthusiastic about the support and meeting other people and building that network, and it just being a little bit different, was amazing.
Yeah, for me it was definitely the first event of Photography Day, because I hadn't really spoken to anybody with meningitis, so it's really nice to know I wasn't on my own. because at school it can seem like you are on your own and nobody quite understands. So it was just nice just being able to relax and talk to people and learn about their stories and just feel like you're not being judged for anything that you've gone through.
I think my main takeaway, and I think it's what I also find you end up talking a lot about with other people that have had it, is it's going to get better. It always is going to get better. But also, there is that acceptance that you're also still going to have bad days and that that's okay.
I think I still do have those days where I feel really rubbish and I fight it and I just think actually I need to let myself just accept that it's going to be a bad day. Just relax and just see what tomorrow brings. The teenage years are one of the hardest years of your life, especially when you've had meningitis, because you're having all these changes and you have college, you have university, you have work, and you have to start living independently. And for like having the after effects of meningitis on top of that, it's really hard. And I think just accepting that you are learning and your learning become independent, it's going to take time, and just accepting the after effects and accepting all the support around you as you're growing up. For me, that really helped. I think also listening to your body, because you know yourself best. If you're absolutely exhausted, if you are struggling with a particular thing, just listen to yourself. Don't listen to anybody around you, because you know yourself best, don't you? And if you're yawning through the whole day, your body's telling you need to rest. And that, I think, happens a lot more with meningitis. You need more rest than maybe others around you.
Yeah, completely. Having more awareness of what I do in terms of mindfulness and self-care does make a huge difference. Whether it is that kind of recharge day or whether it's just accepting that some days I'm going to come home and I'm going to just take myself off and I'm going to read for an hour, or I'm just going to basically do nothing for an hour, sit and listen to music, because I just need that time to just, zone out.
Yeah, for me, I think it's important to think what makes you happy and what makes you relaxed. Personally, for me, I find it best to take myself away from the outside world, disconnect myself, pamper myself, just relax, read a book. I've got like mindfulness apps.
Also talking to people.
Yeah, I
Very genuinely, especially someone that knows what it's like.
yeah.
It's a massive thing.
The great thing with Libby and Fiona is that you can message someone all the time. Someone's always there, whether it's Becky or another person that goes to Libby and Fiona. You know there's always someone there, and that's a really nice, reassuring thought.
Yeah.
Because I've had it from quite a young age, I've had to learn, like obviously at school all your teachers do it for you, and I think going into like independent life it can be quite hard to take on that responsibility. But I think the best thing you can do is explain to that person in the social event, like as long as it's like one person there, just explain, I find it difficult hearing, explain how they can help you, because usually that's enough. The main thing is that people don't quite understand how to communicate with you, and they're probably more scared than anything. So if I'm ever going to a social event, I'll just tell somebody, oh, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. And that can help so much, reducing the anxiety, knowing that there's someone there that now knows how to help you hear. I think I was always just told by my teachers growing up, don't expect yourself to get very far. And I think that was just, for me, I wanted to like prove them wrong, that I can go and do what I want to do. I felt like I had to prove them wrong, and I wanted to prove my family wrong in a sense, like I can do this, I can live independently. I may have to do things differently to everybody else, but I can do it. And that motivation for me really helps. I like being motivated and being busy. I think that helps push me further. I don't know if you feel being busy and working all the time makes you feel better, even though you do need those rest days.
Yeah, completely. I think I kind of on the flip side to that, I had a lot of people that were really supportive and were really continuing to push me in spite of it and still saying, you can still do this, you can still do that. I had to fight more with the fact that I didn't believe that I could do a lot of the things. And actually, by having this little, side note that said, oh, but she's done all this and she also had meningitis, meant that people were taking pity on me. For a long time, I felt as though everything I was doing was overshadowed by the fact that it was, look at all these incredible things she's done, despite the fact she had meningitis. It makes it sound as though you might have been able to do even more if you'd never had that experience.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
And it was getting through that in my head that was one of the most difficult things.
Do you feel like you question that sometimes? Like, oh, if I had meningitis, I might have been able to?
I think less so now, but I think it's still definitely...
in the back of my head, I get it.
And it definitely affected me when it came to things to do with academics and all that kind of stuff, where it was that real... Yeah. I just remember, even down to, when you have to get references for things and stuff like that, it was when I was heading off to university, there was definitely a spin on the fact that I had, not that long ago, had meningitis. And so it was, not having that full sense of belonging because I felt as though people had taken pity on me rather than genuinely thought I was there for my own merit.
I think it's definitely, I'm not sure if it's a skill, but it's definitely improved my confidence, like talking to others and socialising.
Confidence.
Definitely confidence.
I guess public speaking to an extent for me, just because there's been a lot of opportunities to share stories and speak to groups of people. I don't think that my motivation for going to something was to get support. No. I genuinely don't think that was the case. It's not that I then didn't, but it wasn't that I was actively seeking someone to support me at the time. It was more that it's just something that I wanted to take part in. And inadvertently, that's resulted in a really strong support network. But it wasn't that that was what I was actively seeking out. Do it!
Definitely
is that enough?
Give it a try, because you don't know. It might be just your nerves, it might be a bit shy, you don't know what to expect. That's completely normal, that's how I felt. But the moment I got to the first event, I was like completely settled. I felt relaxed, I felt content, and everybody's so welcoming, everyone's so lovely. So like, even if you are shy, you will feel seen, very comfortable, and you'll make lots of new friends. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's that, if you're concerned about being shy or about feeling too exhausted or it might be too overwhelming, it's that realization that that kind of thing's been taken into consideration when planning. And so there's always space for if someone's just overwhelmed or just needs to sit down and actually just be by themselves or just have a chat with someone one-to-one rather than actually being in the middle of the full social occasion. That's part of the experience, that it's there so that people can have whatever experience they need to have at the time.
Yeah, and don't feel like you have to tell everything about meningitis. You don't even have to talk about meningitis at all. You can just talk about how you're feeling that day, and that's okay, that's fine. You can just listen to other people's stories.
Yeah.
Don't feel pressure to talk about yourself.